Hello and welcome. My name's Michelle. I'm with Olive and 2U Studios. Today is the video for our week 2 of our Super Summer Sweater Make Along series. This year, our Super Summer Sweater Make Along is focused on the beautifully basic tee, a pattern written by Melissa Kemmerer. This pattern first appeared in issue 1 of Nomadic Knits, which was focused on Florida. And the pattern was designed using Olive and 2U yarn. So it's very near and dear to our hearts and was an easy pick for this year's Super Summer Sweater Make Along. I've committed to providing a video every single week of our make along experience just to kind of casually walk through the pattern, share with you some commentary, some reflection that I've had, and some thoughts that I've had as I've been working my way through the pattern. This is my 7th iteration of this pattern. I think I've lost count along the way. I've knit either 6 or 7 of these designs, and I use them in my everyday life all the time. I pick up a beautifully basic tee very frequently to wear with jeans or to wear with dress pants or just to go out. It's such a comfortable, versatile pattern, and that's why I love it so much. Before we get started, I'd like to invite you to join our Yarny Use Facebook group. That's where the magic happens, everything behind the scenes with Olive and 2U Studios. In there, you're going to find camaraderie, you're going to find support, friendship, and you get to see all the fun things that people are knitting and crocheting up for inspiration. Additionally, it's in the group that we offer features, and features are specially curated products that come to you with a discount, and they're things that aren't often found online for us. So it's a great way to get some great discounts on some fun products and to have fun behind the scenes. But let's go ahead and get started with week 2 of our Super Summer Sweater Make Along and the Beautifully Basic Tee pattern. So I have printed out my pattern from my digital copy of Nomadic Knits, and you can absolutely purchase the pattern on Ravelry or on Melissa Kimmerer's personal website. Either of those items work, or you can also go to the Nomadic Knits website and purchase the digital copy of issue 1 of Nomadic Knits, in which this pattern appears along with, I think, 9 other patterns. So it is a fantastic value. I like to use a paper copy. I've spoken about that in my previous week 1 video, so I'm not going to talk about that more now, but I have gone through and done my cast on. I'll show you. And I've begun to work into the next segment of the pattern, which is the raglan setup and then the raglan increases. So I'm using the gorgeous colorway Amber Solstice from Olive and 2U Studios yarn. And I'm using our Rawlings base, which is a fantastically luxurious combination of superwash merino, silk, and cashmere. So it has a nice twist to it, which provides some really lovely stitch definition. And then the addition of that silk gives you a lovely sheen and provides fantastic hand and drape to anything you knit up with it. This has pretty much been my go-to base for all of my beautifully basic tees. And this colorway, as I mentioned, is Amber Solstice. Once I saw it, I knew I had to have a BBT in it. All right, so here you go. You can see here my cast on edge, and then of course my ribbing. The pattern calls for a very short amount of ribbing around the neckline. And then after that's complete, you get started right into setting up for your raglan increases and getting those rolling. And you can see, let me show you a little bit better here. You can see that line of raglan increases there. So that's what we're going to be focused on today. So, couple things to keep in mind when you get ready to do raglan increases. First of all is you're going to need some additional stitch markers. So I absolutely have my beginning of round stitch marker. Anytime you're knitting in the round, you need to denote where the beginning of the round is. Let me see if I can get that thing there, that stitch marker right way. There you go. It's my little UK tube stitch marker. That's my beginning of round stitch marker. So as I'm going in the round, every time I come to that, I know that that's the beginning of that particular round. And that's so important when you're stitching in the round. But You're also going to want stitch markers for your raglan increases because those serve as the landmarks, if you will, in your knitting, making it easy to read so you know when it's time to do increase stitches. Now, the way this particular pattern is set up, you do increases before and after your stitch marker. And Melissa does a great job of telling you in the pattern where to place those stitch markers. Now, I don't like super dangly stitch markers as a general rule. I find that sometimes they get tangled up in my knitting or I get confused. I've even knit them into the project before. That's never been a good look, I have to tell you. But I love all the fun knitting jewelry, right? We love the stitch markers and the knitting jewelry. So I typically allow myself to have sort of a more fun or more dangly stitch marker at my beginning of round. That's one marker that I have to manage there. And then I like these stitch markers from Coco Knits. We usually carry these in the shop. They are colored stitch markers, which makes it nice too because you can color code your stitches. I'm just going to dump a few of these out so you can see them. Let's see if I can hold them up a little better if you can see them without me dumping them everywhere. So they are colored stitch markers and they're very simple. They're simply little round rings coated, and so they don't dangle. They're not at risk of getting knit into the fabric. And I find them very easy to use in my knitting. And as I mentioned, having those colors is really helpful because in some patterns, not this particular one, but in other patterns, I find that I will assign different areas of the pattern different colors. So, for example, when I come to the yellow marker, I need to do one particular stitch. And maybe when I come to the pink marker, there's a different stitch that I need to do. So it's a great way to color code your knitting. These particular markers, as I mentioned, are from Coco Knits, and they came in the flight of stitch markers. But Coco Knits also has other solid sets that you can get like this without getting them in the flight. And we typically have those in stock in our shop. Makes it really handy. Okay, so you're going to need your stitch markers in order to get going on your raglan increases. And in the pattern, she tells you exactly how to set it up. It's under the line that says raglan setup. And then based upon the size that you're knitting, she tells you how many stitches to knit. Then PM stands for place marker. And then knit again, PM, place marker. And she does that throughout the whole pattern, at least in the raglan setup section. So when you're done, you have a series of markers set, including your beginning of round marker, which serves as one of the markers, so that you know where the back of the pattern is, where your sleeve stitches are. That's a sleeve section there between the raglan increases, and then where the front of the pattern is, so that you have a very clear front, back, and sleeve section. Those sleeve sections are going to come more into play when you progress through the pattern and it's time to put those sleeve stitches on holders so that you can put them to the side and continue to knit in the round. Then at the end of the pattern, we return back to those sleeve stitches so that we can go ahead and complete the sleeves after the body of the sweater is done. So that's the basic setup. It's very simple, easy to follow, and she tells you right in the pattern where to put your markers, and then all about your increases. You're going to be doing knit front backs, a very simple increase. So if this is your first pattern, you can watch tutorials on YouTube to learn how to do those knit front backs. You'll get the hang of it in no time. Simple increase. And yeah, you'll just move along and increase the width of your pattern as you go, making it really simple. Now, there's a couple other things you need to know when you're working your raglan increases. One of them is you have a 2-row repeat that repeats multiple times depending on the size of your particular sweater. My 2-row repeat, don't want to tell you incorrectly, I am going to repeat those 2 rounds a total of 46 times. Well, one of the things I've learned is that I need help keeping track of where I'm at in a pattern. And usually I can mark my way or use a sticky note to make sure I know what line I'm on. But in this particular instance, I have to repeat this 2-row pair 46 times. I'm going to lose track of that. And so, like many of you, I use a row counter. Now, row counters come in many different shapes and sizes. There are dangling row counters. There are simple row counters like this. There are row counters that you can use on your phone. There are a lot of different types of row counters. And over the years, I've tried a lot of them because I like to try all the things. But I've learned that I really love this one from Coco Knits. We're back to Coco Knits. I love it because it's simple. It locks. It has a locking mechanism on it, which means if I put it in my project bag or my purse, I can lock it so it doesn't inadvertently advance itself or decrease itself, throwing my count off. And it's just really simple. Plus, it has little magnifiers on the front there that make it easy to read the numbers. There's a button at the top that helps it to advance through the numbers, and it's just simple for me to use. But then I encountered another problem when I began knitting these sweaters, and that is I have to remember whether I'm on a knit row or I'm on an increase row. And I got really tired really quickly of marking it on my pattern in pencil. That meant every time I went a revolution around the body of the sweater, I had to make a tick mark so I could remember whether I was on a knit row or an increase row. And I have to tell you, I tried also in the beginning just to remember. I'm like, I'm a grown up. I can remember this. No, I can't. I would get interrupted. I'd get a text message or a phone call, and I wouldn't be able to remember where I was. So I devised a really easy solution, a little code or a little trick for me to remember where I am, whether I'm on a knit row, a straight knit row, or I'm on an increase row. It's very simple. I'm going to warn you, right? We all have our little tips and tricks, and this is mine. It's very simple. If I'm on an increase row, so an increase row is slightly more complex because I'm doing increased stitches, knit front backs. That's more complex, more labor intensive. So when I'm working those rows, an increase row, I keep my row counter turned up with the numbers facing up. Wherever I am, the arm of the sofa, the arm of the chair, at the table that I'm working at, if I'm working an increase row, I keep the row counter sitting with the numbers up. When I pass that increase row and I'm ready to begin the straight knit row, meaning that I'm not doing any increases or decreases, I turn the row counter over to the plain side because that's more of a plain row. And I only advance the row counter when I'm done with an increase row. So I'm knitting along, I'm doing my increases, my row counter is up with this side facing up. I complete an increase row, I press the button, I advance it, I turn it over to the plain side, I knit the plain row, no increases, no decreases. I finish that row. That's now one set. That's one set. That's an increase revolution and a plain knit revolution. That's one set. I turn it back over to the more complicated side, to the dial side, and begin my increase row again. And then again, when I finish that row, I press the button. It advances another set for me, and I move on. So I need 46 to appear on my row counter to know that I've done all the sets of 2 that I needed to do. And right now it's at number 24. So I'm a little halfway over with my raglan increases. That's my trick. It's stupid simple, but it works for me. And you may well develop your own trick, whatever you need to do so you don't lose your place. I recommend that you do it. And like I said, people have different tricks, different ways that they sort of manage that to make it easy for them. And mine is probably one of the simpler ways. I'm willing to own that. Mine's one of the simpler ways. So, as we spoke about before, you're also going to want to have some point protectors or stitch stoppers. Mine happen to be adorable little Highland Coos, getting ready for our Yarny Use trip to Scotland. So I use these for my point protectors to make sure that my stitches don't slip off in the meantime when it's just sitting on the couch or in my project bag. That keeps them nice and secure. So those are the items that you're going to need for your raglan increases. Again, it's not a lot of tools or anything, not a lot of notions, super easy. You know, I always love to have a nice little notions pack in my project bag. This happens to be from Firefly Notes. I love their items. We typically carry some of their things in the shop or use them in mystery boxes. And if I open this up, you're going to see there's like a whole range of stitch markers and stitch stoppers. I've even got a little emergency stitch marker that I had to make out of some yarn one time because I didn't, for whatever reason, have this handy. So I just tied some yarn together to make a stitch marker at one point. That still lives in there. Some of my more dangly stitch markers, look, cute cup of tea there. Again, I typically save these for beginning of round. And then I've got the super simple little round circles from Cocoa Knits. And then I have an array of stitch stoppers. These also are from Cocoa Knits. All kinds of knitting jewelry and knitting notions packed into my project bag because you never know when you might need something. So we've cast on. We've done our ribbing on the Beautifully Basic Tee. Now we've begun our Raglan increase setup. I'm about a little over halfway done with my Raglan increases. And so I'm continuing to carry on with that. The next big part of the pattern that we're going to come to is when we put our sleeve stitches on hold and continue to knit the body of the sweater. The sleeve stitches will go on holders. Those will be set aside, and then we'll just continue to knit around the body until we get to the bottom hem ribbing, and then we'll go back and revisit those sleeves and complete it. We're making progress on our Beautifully Basic Tee. Now, this is going to go a little faster for you if you happen to be doing your DK weight, Beautifully Basic Tee. I'm doing a fingering weight. I've only ever done the fingering weight. And I will tell you in the beginning, when I'm rolling through kind of like, okay, get the cast on done, get the Raglan increase set up, start doing those Raglan increases. Every single time I have knit this sweater, in the beginning, I'm like, wow, I'm making great progress. This is awesome. I'm rolling right along. Look, my Raglan increases are all set up. Look, I'm doing those increases. I'm almost done with those increases. I'm going to put those sweater sleeves on holders. Let's get rolling. Let's get this thing finished. It's a bit of a slog if you're doing the fingering weight once you get past putting those sweater stitches on hold. It's a lot of knitting, but the great news about it is that it's really good social knitting. It's knitting that's perfect for watching television or Netflix or something like that. It's knitting that's fantastic for having a conversation because once you put those sleeve stitches on hold, you really don't have to think about it too much anymore. You're just knitting around and around and around we go. It does take some time, but it's so worth it in the end because it's a great pattern. It's a great basic item to have in your closet. Now, if you haven't jumped on the Super Summer Sweater Make-Along yet with the Beautifully Basic Tee, there's still time. Right now, the kits are still available on our website. Obviously, the Make-Along has already begun, but you can jump in at any time. There's no requirement to have a finished object in order to be prize eligible. You just need to join the Yarny Use Facebook group, start posting your progress pics right there on the official thread, and the grand prize winner is going to get a $100 gift card, which is pretty cool. So we've got all kinds of fun things happening in the Yarny Use. Still time to get in on this. If you're on the fence, I really recommend that you jump in. It's a fun sweater to knit. There's beautiful colors. It's a great way to use some of that beautiful stash yarn you have, or always a good excuse to order more. If you have any questions at all about the Yarny Use or anything at Olive and 2U Studios, I encourage you to reach out to me at michelle@oliveand2u.com. If you head over to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter. And every single week, we send you information about what's new in the shop, what's happening with our make-alongs and our stitch-alongs, and all sorts of fun Yarny things. If you have questions about the pattern specifically, I encourage you to reach out to Melissa Kemmerer, the designer. She's available on Ravelry. And she does have our own website, of course. The links are down below to purchase the pattern and over for our website and all the information you may need. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next week for week 3 of our Super Summer Sweater Make-Along and more commentary and information on the Beautifully Basic Tee pattern. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the Yarny Use. Take care. Bye-bye.